Every day I get stronger. Every day in the seminar you get weaker. Why do you think that is? Because I love what I do and you hate what you do. Gallup poll in 2016, 87.something% of the people on the world hate their lives. 87% hate their lives. I'd like to find the 13%. I haven't found too many of those, but they say they're around. I want you to be more selfish to fulfill your dreams. And for those people that are getting in the way of your dreams, don't be more selfish to them. Just extract them from your life. That's how you be the best husband, the best student, the best father, the best brother, the best grandchild, the best citizen, in my judgment, is love of yourself. When I first read Think and Grow Rich in 1972, I think, I underlined it, and then I didn't read it again until I believe in the early 80s, and I had the same copy of the underlined, and I went back and it was interesting what I underlined in 72 as opposed to what I underlined in 82, and then when I read it again in about 2003, 4, the things that I underlined the first time, I said, how come I didn't understand that the first time? I mean, that's so simple. And most of the stuff that I underlined the second time, it was slam dunk. And so because I had grown and matured, not just because, the frontal lobe of the male brain isn't finished maturing or growing until you're 26, 27, or 28, the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe of the female brain is mature way before that. And so when I was, even though I was pretty successful in my mid-20s, mostly by design, some by serendipity, but most of my success was because I was around successful people. And I didn't understand, you are who you hang around with. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. I didn't know that concept, but I know now, looking back, a lot of these guys I was not hanging with, but I mean, I was exposing myself to their business principles, like Bunker Hunt and who was part of the billionaire Hunt brothers, and it was quite interesting. When you think about what other people think, say about you, etc., but we really haven't dwelled on, because it's a waste of time, how much time you waste worrying. And of course you worry because you have thin skin. Adenauer, the former mayor of Berlin, said the thick skin was a gift from God. Thick skin, he was a politician, very successful politician. And Sally calls me rhino skin because it takes I can't remember the last time that somebody said something that, I can't ever remember since I'm a kid, somebody saying something that hurt me. Hurt my feelings. I think back about it, I can't remember. And I'm sure everybody in this room can remember somebody saying something about them that hurt your feelings. I can't remember, and you can remember. Because I just, I wasn't raised that way. Be firm, but fair, but firm. Mm-hmm. Because people appreciate, the kids don't lack ingenuity. What they lack is leadership. And now being a firm leader is considered politically incorrect. But showing tough love, they forget the tough part, and they only remember the love part.
The book you recommend, Tough Minded Management?
Correct, right? By Joe Batten.
It's still a very relevant book,
It is. And Joe Batten was the mentor of Ross Perot, a billionaire back in the day, and he also wrote a great book.
A little book, My Principles, I think. That's My Life and My Principles.
Yeah.
Not many people read it because it's not a very popular book.
And he also wrote a book, Tough Minded Leadership.
Yeah.
And those are the only two books you need on management and leadership. As soon as we got tougher, as soon as we got less PC, as soon as we got that we didn't care what they said or thought about us, we got more successful. And we started doing deals. You cannot do, a lot of transactions without hurting feelings. The old saying about to make an omelet, you got to break eggs. And everybody that's ever had an omelet, there's normally some kind of eggshell in it because they can't get all the eggshell out. Collateral damage. Fred Smith, the founder of Federal Express, said, and he's similar background, similar age. He was a young Marine officer. I was a young Army officer. He said when he came back from Vietnam, as soon as he realized his mistakes, the collateral damage of his mistakes did not end up with body bags, meaning dead people, he says the rest was easy. So the worst I was ever going to do is hurt somebody's feelings, make them cry. And he built Federal Express, and he's one of the icons of business who's still running the business. Programming yourself and your habits really isn't that difficult when you understand what makes the synapses fire. It's not that hard. But you're not used to saying no. You're used to saying yes, or not saying anything and giving tacit approval. How many times, for those of you that have a significant other, does your significant other say something you know is just bullshit, that you just give in? Make peace, why make war, right? I don't fall into that category. And if you're used to saying yes just to not make war, or you're used to giving tacit approval just not to make war at home, that follows through in the rest of your life. That follows through in the rest of your life. And but once you get used to it, like most spouses, significant others will say, God, he's changed, she's changed. Most will say for the worse until you get traction, until you get momentum. Oh, God, I like the new roles. I like the new this. I like flying first class. That Dan's a genius now. But that takes some time. That takes some time. Every day I get stronger. Every day in the seminar you get weaker. Why do you think that is? Because I love what I do and you hate what you do. There's a slide coming up tomorrow. Gallup poll in 2016, 87.something% of the people on the world hate their lives. 87% hate their lives. I'd like to find the 13%. I haven't found too many of those, but they say they're around. Not counting all the Biafra, Ghana, Kenya kind of countries. 87% of the planet hate what they do. They've checked out. They're just taking up time, waiting for retirement. I'm sure some of you in this room can relate to that. 87% have checked out. Now, to me, if you've checked out, I mean, what the hell? Jesus. And you're all going to live older. The 70 is the new 50, they tell me. I don't even feel 50. I feel 30. I act 30. I got more energy than probably the whole room. And, well, because I love dragging you sorry guys and gals across the goal line. My wife, lovely wife Sally, says the reason I have arthritis in my back is because you're getting heavy now that I'm getting older, dragging you across the goal line. But I will kick, spit, slap. I will do whatever it takes. And when I say I'll do whatever it takes, I mean it. I will insult you, your mother, your religion. I know how to get you to the top of the podium at the Olympics. Not for a bronze medal, not for a silver, but for a gold. If we're not going for gold, don't waste my time. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, what if you could accomplish in the world today if you weren't afraid? If you weren't afraid of what people thought of you, said about you, whispered about you, what could you accomplish? A lot more than you've accomplished today. A lot more. Why do we care what people think? Why do we care what people say? And more importantly, why do we care what people whisper? Because we have no self-worth. We have next to little self-esteem. And we have no self-confidence. And how do we get that way? Yes, mommy and daddy. Life expands and contracts with courage. When was the last courage type thing that you did in your lifetime? Walk against a red light? Whisper that your spouse, your significant other is a bitch or a bastard? When was the last time you exhibited some courage? Some of you have to go back a long, long way. Some of you never. I said yesterday, I cannot believe that there are people in this audience that have never been spanked, never had a harsh word said to them by their parents, never got in a fight on the school grounds. I can't believe that. And you wonder why you are the way you are. Now, I'm not saying that being a high-performance person is beating the shit out of everybody, but it doesn't hurt. When I was growing up, contrary to what you were growing up, I'm 13 years old and I'm wrestling with lions. That's me and Jackie the Lion from the MGM, Metro Goldwyn Mayer. That's the first lion, Jackie. So I'm not afraid of animals. To this day, I'm wrestling. My mother's over here out of camera, screaming and yelling, afraid that the lion is going to eat me. And then, fast forward 40, 50 years, there we are with tigers. You can see Sally in the background there. Yes, people get hurt on these things. Yes, people get killed on these things. That's why there's only 3 people in that picture. And Sally and I went trekking with the lions a few years ago. Because I'm continuing to push the envelope. I never want to be comfortable doing anything. If you're in sales, make 300 cold calls a day. 300 cold calls a day.
300 cold calls a day.
Correct.
Will it still work nowadays?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah?
We got kids doing it right now.
Question.
We even got some lazy Dutch kids doing it right now.
Just pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Make
and I mean, for a Dutch kid, 24 years old, to make 20 cold calls a day, you'd think it's a big deal. There's nobody teaching sales in this country that I'm aware of that tells you to make 300 cold calls a day. In fact, there's nobody on the planet that I'm aware of that tells you to make 300 cold calls a day. I had a guy just do a $50 million deal. He said, Dan, if you had just told me I was 2,000 cold calls away from my first deal, I would have sent you a check for 20 grand and said thank you, and I wouldn't have come to the castle. And life is not a journey. It's only if you're a meathead, clubfoot retard. And if for those of you, I'm not trying to, if some of you have issues with retardation, I'm not trying to, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. It's a model. You find someone, as I said yesterday after, where he or she is where you want to be. And then you model them. You mimic them. You copy them. Same way you would if you want to be a footballer. Same way you want to be if you want to be a golfer. You don't copy some monkey that can't break 100, do you? Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle had this figured out 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. What the f*** happened? Why'd we stop? These are arguably the first mentor-mentee relationships that existed on the planet. I'm not teaching anything new, guys, gals. I give credit to the man that I copied, Andrew Carnegie. Came up with the QLA model and didn't call it QLA because he could have been Dutch, really. He was a mean, cheap person that didn't want to spend money, so he didn't allow equity in his transactions. He only used debt, as you would say, debt. So he would still own it all, and that's all I did. He was doing this 140 years ago, what I do. But if you believe in yourself, I had to go Obama again, I had a dream! I'm running down Torrance Boulevard in 1983, and I had just looked at a magazine called The Robb Report, which I recommend that you all subscribe to. And it had castles on islands, and I said, I'm going to buy a castle on an island. That was March 83. I moved into the Guthrie Castle, September 184. Had no way to pay for it. Didn't have I had a pot to piss in. But 15 months later, was that 15 or 17 months? Anyway, from March to September 1 the next year. So I had an Obama moment, and I wasn't even cracked up. I had a dream. So even though I make fun of these guys that have a dream, but I've had it myself. But if you don't have a dream, guess what? It can't come true. And you're never going to exceed your highest expectation. You will never, for those of you that want to make $1 million, you're never going to make 1,000,001. You are who you hang around with. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. The first self-esteem is built the first 7 or 8 years of life. Who are you around the first 7 or 8 years of life? Mom, maybe dad, older brother, uncle, a grandmother, right? What the hell do they know about building self-esteem? They don't know anything. And now, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Who do you go hang with? Who do you chill with? And he and I, we disagree about a few things, but Bill Gates doesn't hang. Steve Jobs, who I knew, didn't chill. Warren Buffett doesn't hang. Elon Musk doesn't hang. And I go down the list of people that don't hang. Very few people are happy with what they're doing. And if you want to build self-esteem, deal with people that have high self-esteem. For those of you that want to save the world, go make a bunch of money and then go save the world. Or more recently, the last 4, 5, 6 years, I've said, figure out a system, a process, a procedure, an invention that changes 1 billion lives and you'll become, a multi-billionaire, i.e. Facebook, Zuckerberg. This young kid that came to me a year and a half ago, his goal, his dream in his life was to finish #1 university champion archer in Britain. What's the best you've ever done? 20th in a regional meet, he says to me. So we set up a program and I beat him like a rented mule. That's him receiving the first place a couple months ago in Britain. The little skinny shit. He looks like a little Nimrod snowflake, because he is. But he was firing 600-700 arrows a day. Most of you couldn't fire 50. Most of you in this room have never been held accountable about anything in your life. And look at the result. Focus.
Focus, yeah.
I focus on everything. I focus on one thing at a time. Most of you are engaged in 2, 3, 4 different endeavors, and you're not doing any of them very well. Focus on one. And I never get into business. I'm not looking to exit. But by the way, I said it yesterday. For those of you, and I read some emails from a couple of you, you have a business 2 years ago, and now you're doing 250,000 or 260,000 euros in revenue. That's geometric growth. You started from 0 24 months ago. You're now doing 250,000 euros. That's geometric growth. But now, what did I say yesterday? You start playing not to lose instead of playing to win. Focus. And it's a single key thing when you're an athlete. And I wasn't an athlete by any stretch of the imagination, but the world-class athletes I've had the privilege of working with, all the same thing, focus. If they're basketball players, and I had the pleasure of working with the Lakers back in their heyday, they wake up, they go to sleep with the basketball, literally. Footballers, they go to sleep, from the time they get up to the time they go to bed, that's all they think about is focus. I had a nurturing mother, but I had a dad that kicked the shit out of me. Beat me like a rented mule. And if my father was still alive, and I have uncles, and they'd say, Manny, you're too hard on Danny. And he would say, just as he looked into the camera and said, my son's successful not because of me, but in spite of me, he looked him in the eye and says, how's your program working out with your crackhead whore daughter? Because when they compared me, no matter how much I did wrong, my success, I don't know anything other than dropping the ball in center field, which I have nightmares about to this day. I've only had success. And when you've only had success all your life, I make money by accident. I don't know failure. I just don't. And it's infectious. And you start not hanging or chilling, exposing and not exposing yourself in a sexual way. Exposing yourself, I got to be careful about all these words now. And you start exposing yourself to high performance people. You'll forget how to be a loser. You'll forget how to be a loser. Some people will never like me, and I will never give a f***. You worry about what they say. As I told Brian Rose 4 years ago, you have no idea how limitless your life becomes vis-a-vis goals when you don't give a shit what people think, say, or whisper about you. You have no idea. The world will not value me until I value myself. And the reason why people don't value you, kids, is because you don't value yourself. Confidence is not, they will like me. Confidence is, I'll be fine if they don't like me. Now, it's safe to say that I've never been worried about what people think of me. That's a truth. That's a truth. Jeff, is worth about $150 billion, the founder of Amazon. This is what he looked like almost 20 years ago. 20 years ago, they laughed at him. 20 years ago, he wasn't worth $20,000, let alone $150 billion. Now he's got a company, roughly speaking, around $1 trillion. A little less, maybe $150 billion less because of the sell-off in the market, etc. But they laughed at him. He had an idea. He had a dream. Like him, I had a dream about 35 years ago. I am the first person on the planet that took an option for something he did not own, public, on a major stock exchange. I'm going to say, okay, I don't own that book, right? I paid him $1. I want an option. I'll give you $5 for that book a year from now. I took an option. I took that book, not owning it, and I sold it on the New York Stock Exchange for $150 million. That's what I did. And that was the beginning of my quantum leap. When I first went to work for a Wall Street firm in 1972, they didn't really have any formal sales program, training programs. And so what they did is they give you the yellow pages. Call everybody in the yellow pages. And when you got through the yellow pages, call everybody in the white pages. And then when you got down to the white pages, you cold called every building that had more than 10 stories on Wall Street. Well, every building on Wall Street has 10 stories. And so you got to kiss a lot of frogs, Pena, before you're going to find a customer. And you got to turn over a lot of rocks. It was 25 years straight, from 1991 to 1996. I didn't take a day off. 25 years straight. 1991, or 71 to 1996. 71 to 90. I didn't take a day off. A few months ago, when we were working, I signed a deal for a TV show a few weeks ago, and they were doing research, and we discovered that where I lived in 1972 on 27th and Lexington, when I first went to Wall Street, it's now been torn down. We used to call the building the Bed Bug. Probably some of you live in the Bed Bug now. And then 12 years later, I was living in the castle. 12 years. Yes, was a castle on my affirmations? Yes. Was a castle on my goals? Yes. Was a castle in my prayers? Yes. But I thought the castle was going to have a moat and have all kind of neat stuff. It doesn't have a moat, but it's a pretty neat place for those of you that have looked at it in Google. Because I continue to believe. I continue to believe. So I've gone from the barrio, that's where my house used to be, behind that chain link fence, and you can see between me and that brick wall isn't very much space. We had an 800 square foot house. I think that's 75 square meter house. Even some of you probably live in bigger houses than that. And of course, there I am with my lovely wife. On my 75th birthday, I needed a new Rolls Royce like I needed AIDS. So what did my wife give me for my 75th birthday? A Rolls just like the Queen has. So when we drive by, I go, just like she does. So you've got rich people, right? Most of you aren't hanging, not chilling with those people, are you? Nope. Why? You've got all kind of reasons why, don't you? I didn't go to school. That's what I got to say about all those reasons. I didn't either. But somehow I weaseled my way into people richer than that. In a good way. Because it was important to me to change my life. From being the barrio bad boy who almost killed his teacher when he was 12 years old. If success was important to you, you would have done something about it by now. But it's not too late. It's never too late. Energy is in here. I happen to be in excellent physical condition. Not if I'm 72. If I'm 32, I'm in an excellent. But I work at it. Okay. And I have worked at it since 1974, what is now called biohacking. Mm-hmm. I started being aware of my physical condition. I test my blood every 6 to 8 weeks. I've got, I told you yesterday I wasn't joking about my testosterone level. But I work at it. Okay. And but when I turn 60, I only drink when I'm traveling now or at the seminars. I don't drink, and I'm a vegan when I'm at home. Okay. Not because I believe in that vegan horse, but I lose weight like crazy when you're a vegan. When I was in Poland, as I said yesterday afternoon, I talked about some very successful kids, and I said, Jan, stand up. He's 22 years old. He's currently a student at Krakow University. He made €1 million last year, which is no big deal to me, but to most of you, €1 million is a big deal. Not one single student went up to ask him what his name was. Jan what? Because if they did, and he told them the tip, the secret sauce, they may feel some responsibility to try to do it themselves. And then when they failed, then they're f***ed. You know, most of the podcasts, most of the seminars, most of the various things that you study, you're not learning shit. Otherwise, why are you still here? With the greatest respect to Michael. There's no reason. When you leave here today, after the Q&A is over, and I've already told you everything's free on my website. And when you see me at the airport, don't come up and talk to me. Don't touch me. I don't give a shit if you live or die. My obsession is to drive as many of you lazy bastards across the goal line as humanly possible before I die. That's it. If I have to hurt you, spit on you, call your mother a whore, I don't care. When Josh was, he had a 60-hour-a-week job, and he was doing QLA 70 hours a week. That doesn't give much room for sleep, does it? But you'll say, well, he was 17, 18. You don't need sleep when you're 17, 18. You already got a reason why you can't work 130, 40 hours a week, that you need sleep. He cut back to 3 hours a night sleep, the guy you just listened to, and then he couldn't take it. He only lasted a few weeks at 3 hours a night sleep, and so he had to go back to 4 hours. When you know, it's like when you were in lust with that person, you know, you wanted to f*** all night in the toilet, in the car, in the closet. When you figure out that every hour you sleep, you're not making money, you'll never sleep again.
Rule number 22, focus on making money.
Now, money's not everything. It's the only thing anybody keeps track of, but it's not everything. But for those of you who want to save the world, go find a product, an idea that will change 1 billion lives, and by definition, 1, you'll save the world, and 2, you'll be a billionaire. Because you see Gates and Buffett and a number of the luminaries that have made a lot of money in current day, they've made a lot of money, now they're trying to save the world. Bill Gates wasn't running around with a placard, as they say in this country, around the embassy about save the rainforest when he was 17, 18, 20 years old. And we have some Save the World guys in the audience. And we have Save the World guys in every audience. Our children finished undergraduate school, and they both worked before they went on to graduate school. I told both Kelly and Derek, make 300 cold calls a day, and you'll lead the nation in sales or in anything you do. 300 cold calls a day. And that's getting through to somebody, not leaving a message, blah, blah, blah. Oh, shit. And they both did. You cannot, even if you're a retard like you guys, if you make 300 legitimate cold calls, you'll make $1 million a year, no problem. And that's not a lot of money, and I say that begrudgingly, but to most people it is. That's 1,500 cold calls a week. That's 6,000 cold calls a month. That's 72,000 cold calls a year. If you can't make $1 million, you ought to kill yourself, metaphorically speaking. I tell the kids, you're going to hear something here that you haven't heard growing up. I want you to be more selfish to fulfill your dreams. And for those people that are getting in the way of your dreams, don't be more selfish to them. Just extract them from your life. It's a lot easier. And my first wife or my current wife for many years were here to tell you, they'd say, we worship the ground Dan walks on, but nobody loves Dan more than Dan. My love for my husband is transitory compared to his love for himself. Nobody loves me more than me. And that's how you be the best husband, the best student, the best father, the best brother, the best grandchild, the best citizen in my judgment, is love of yourself. Of course, that's self-esteem, that's self-confidence. If you want, we'll go back home, it's to do what?
I don't know, I want to become wealthy.
Well, I mean, it's easier to become wealthy here than in Romania. Although we have Romanian mentees, millionaires, we do, but it's harder. Here it's well, no, it's not easy, but Lithuania, Hungary, Romania, those countries, it's harder. Oh, the best deal in 25 years was just done by one of my Hungarian mentees, and he just did the second best deal in 25 years on top of that deal, and he's a little Peter, if you're listening, I mean, he didn't have enough self-confidence to brush his own teeth. And now he's a wealthy guy on the cover of Hungarian Business, and he did it without paying one bribe. And that's a big deal in that part of the world. So, but you got to follow your heart. I don't mean a lovey, gushy way for your mom. You got to follow your heart. Because in 25 years from now, your mother's going to be dead. And you're going to regret that you spent any time with her.
Yep.
I'm in the regret minimization business. What are you going to tell your grandkids during the greatest transformation of wealth in the history of the planet? What were you doing other than having a thumb up your ass? Our kids were here right now. My daughter would say, Jesus Christ, the world is up, Dad, for another reason, though. Why anybody would want to be raised by you? You have no idea what it was to be your child. And I'm sure I don't. And my daughter, I think I mentioned yesterday, my dad treats everybody the same, like shit. And I'm hard. And hard works. World-class coaches are hard. We have a guy in the Hall of Fame, my most successful mentees. He says, I haven't been beat this hard since I was the #2 guy on the Austrian ski team, arguably one of the best ski teams in the world. And then he blew out his knee, and his coach used to beat him. Physically beat him. Now, I can't get away with that anymore, but most of you needed a beating growing up. You just did. And most of you, your parents weren't trained to produce high-performance kids. You and I both know it. We've had grandfathers, daughters, granddaughters. And we've had sons and fathers in the seminar room. And when you ask the grandfather, I did the best we know how. Ask the mother, you don't know what you don't know. Ask the kid, they f*** me up. You don't know what your kids really think about you. I do. I get their emails. Most of your kids are embarrassed by you. In some cases, I'm sorry to say, ashamed of you. People with the best communication skills do best at this. And most of your communication skills suck. Most of the retards, I don't mean retarded in that sense, retards watching this on YouTube have no communication skills. At one time, I had piss poor communication skills. They used to throw plates at me when I go to a Rotary Club to give a speech. Can you imagine? They threw plates at me. Your feelings would be hurt. If you can't sell your dream, nobody's going to join you. Oprah Winfrey's got a saying about, it's not exactly important where the bus is going, but the people that you have on the bus with you, because you're going to morph, you're going to pivot, which is true. And if you are not enthusiastic, overwhelmingly enthusiastic, that's not been one of my shortcomings. I've always been enthusiastic, and I've had good to great communication skills. And but you don't have, if your communication skills are 5% of mine, you have no problem being a billionaire. 5% of mine. 5%. And that's why I tell you, go to improv, go to Toastmasters, etc. I got an F in public speaking in high school. I got an F in public speaking in university, and I got a D in public speaking the second time in university. But then I went and made 250 speeches where I told you, and some of you don't believe me, they threw plates at me. They threw dinner rolls at me. But I didn't leave the podium. I emptied out auditoriums. My speaking skills were so poor. But the world has become sophisticated. Political correctness reigns. And I'm here to tell you, in my humble opinion, and there's nothing humble about me, that political correctness is a manifestation of lack of self-esteem. Because you care about what people say about you. You care about what people think about you. And I don't. And either does Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, Henry Ford I, and I can go down the list.
I want to open hundreds of salons around the United States, even in Europe. My problem is, how do I find a team I can trust? How do I find a good team? And that's what I'm having a hard time.
You don't find a team by not taking action. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. That's just the way it is. The more you question it, the less you're going to be inclined to pull a trigger. I would rather make a mistake than just think about making a mistake. See, you're so afraid, you're so used to playing not to win and playing not to lose. Just like the astronauts. The astronauts train for years and years and years before they go up for every contingency, for every single possibility. And some of the possibilities are 1 in a trillion, but they still train for them. Practice, practice, practice. The people that are doing the most, and Josh alluded to it himself, he practices. It's very easy to get sloppy after you've done a bunch of deals. I practice between 1 and 1.5 hours for this seminar, for every hour before the seminar. So I had in about 70, 80 hours, and the seminar is 50 hours long, 75, 80 hours that I practice. And I know what's on slide 1158. And then, sometimes I skip 20, 30 slides, and I did skip because we had already gone over this stuff last night when I was working. And because we're going to talk about goals now, and if you don't see your vision, Bill Gates, I'm told, although I never asked him, he saw a computer in every house. Okay, and I told you yesterday, he now wishes he said he put two computers in every house, and most houses do have 2, right? Some have 3, 4, 5. And then he said, I should have said a computer in every house on the entire planet. But they all practice. There's a slide coming up showing Hitler practicing. When he was practicing before he became chancellor in 1933, I think it was, maybe 32, he had over 1 million pictures taken of him, 1 million. In the right pose, the right this, the right hand gesture, the right, so he could be more effective. He studied great speakers before him. And arguably, Mr. Hitler, even though he was an asshole, he was one of the great orators of all time.
I think people realize that how great you are as a communicator, and I'm always very shocked at how good you are even as a storyteller, how great your memory is, that you'll be able to tell a story. How do you do that?
Well, I work at it. When I first started, I didn't have any stories.
Yes.
I only had the stories of my mentors.
Yes.
Okay. And so
Jim Newman.
Jim Newman, Costa Gratsos, who was CEO of NASA Shipping, and a guy named Jerry Ormond, who was my mentor in the oil business. And so, but over time, I learned by storying around. Meaning people will allow information to resonate into their subconscious when they hear it in a story form. And so when I saw that my mentors used stories and they were pulling stuff from 20, 30 years ago, that resonated with me. And so then I developed my storytelling abilities. And I tried to frame everything I did in a story, and a true story. And now, occasionally I'll miss a date and somebody from the internet will correct me. No, it wasn't in 2001, it was 2002. That's fine. At least I have a backstop.
Yeah.
But I'm only off a year and I've got 1 million stories, so
yes,
give me a break.
You do.
Yeah.
You do.
But I realize how much they work. And now I have stories that I can tell about you.
Yes.
I have stories I can tell about, Brian Rose.
Brian Rose.
I have stories about many, many other successful kids, and that resonates even more with the kids. In theory, we should be able to kill off the Russians easy, but we won't kill off the Russians because they're tough. They're tough. Now, when I went through Ranger School, they hung us from trees and put battery wires on our testicles. There are dozens and hundreds of lawsuits against the federal government because the guys couldn't have kids. They stake us out on anthills and pour honey over us and let the ants eat us for 2 or 3 days. This was the training. And now, and you're right, I mean, when the spirit of the bayonet used to be to kill, and you're going through a boot camp, you know, many have broken tooth, cracked jaw, because your drill sergeant hit you in the face with the butt of the rifle. And now you wonder why we're all cunts. That's why I bring my own security. I'm not ignoring you. In Toronto, somebody finally asked me, well, why did you bring the cricket bat? Snowflake. I said, because your school told me I should have security, which they did. I'm not going to pay a bunch of goons. No, I can do the same as they can. And I said, and then somebody asked me about 20 minutes, well, what do you do with a cricket bat? I swear to you. And then I jumped down off the stage and I said, because the first 5 or 6 of you aren't going to come at me, even though there's 400 of you, because you don't want to be the first 1, 2, or 3 that I knock their head off. But they had to ask me what I was going to do with a cricket bat. That's where we are.
Success leaves clues. If if the super successful people don't hang, don't chill, don't go to Super Bowls and all those things, and the hard asses, okay, but only 98% of the high performers in the world are alpha males. 2% are alpha males, 98% are regular people. Because, for example, Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, Warren Buffett all share one attribute. They're introverts.
This continuum, right?
Correct, yeah. And so, I mean, you don't have to be an alpha male. And back in the day, 100 years ago, and doing research for one of my talks, they had obviously alpha males, but they didn't call them alpha males. They called them oak trees.
Oak trees.
Oak trees, because that was considered the straightest thing in the forest, and it didn't break down, and so they were called oak trees. And but when I tell people about Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, all being introverts, because most people are introverts. Most people are pleasers.
What drives you then?
Well, when I went into coaching 25 and a half years ago, I wanted to change what was called personal development then into true financial coaching stroke mentoring. And I didn't know what I would have to do it, but whatever I've done in my life, I always want to lead. I want to be first. So after about 4 or 5 years, I discovered that even though I'm a good motivational speaker, that's not what I want to do. I want to teach how to create generational wealth, okay? Wealth that normally takes 20 to 25 years to create, which is the definition of a generation, in 3 to 7 years. As we were saying in the car on the way over here, 3 years if you do everything perfectly, which we know nobody does it perfectly. 6 or 7 years for somebody that's good, and 8 to 10 years if you're a real doofus. And I realized the work that it would take, and that I sold all my portfolio, I sold all my assets. Sally and I have been in cash for a long, long time, because I don't want there to be a conflict between me giving the kid advice and my own personal investment strategy. And so as we've continued to develop the templates, the processes, the systems, and the procedures, they're based on success. One success after another success. Last 4 or 5 years, we've produced teenage multimillionaires. Some of the teenage multimillionaires, as you can witness on YouTube, are flying around their own goddamn jet planes now. We've produced the largest deal in recorded history, the $500 billion NEOM, which is the city of the 22nd or 23rd century, with a mentee, Klaus Kleinfeld. So we've got everything from millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions, tens of billions, and even hundreds of billions now. And we have all the systems how to do it. And 99.9% of all the kids that have benefited from QLA, I've never met. I wouldn't know them if they were standing in this room, because we decided almost 10 years ago to give all the product away free. Because I went, as you pointed out, I went from the most expensive product online to free. Because that takes away almost all the excuses of the kids that are just flapping their mouth.
The difference between a victim and a victory is action. Most of you and most of the people on the YouTube have led quiet lives of desperation, and they've lived their lives as victims. just as your parents have. And just because your parents are a doctor or a lawyer or doesn't make a that's an honorable profession. I'm not discounting it. I mean, being a school teacher is an honorable profession. Being a plumber is an honorable profession. You wanna create generational wealth, change the lives of 1 billion people. None of your ideas in this room are changing the lives of 1 million people, let alone 1 billion. Zuckerberg is the most recent example of that. And God knows he's changed the lives of 3.5 billion. I'm not so sure for the best, but that's a whole other story. But I mean, if you're not first, you got to be different, your ideas. What's your unique selling proposition? What's your barrier to entry? All these things that, when I look at your deals, and I'm not even counting the deals these assholes on YouTube send me. Forget about that. But I mean, has anybody ever thought this through? And the courses and the podcasts and the web, doesn't anybody ever talk about barrier to entry? If you're not first, you got to be different. Does anybody talk about that? No. It doesn't register that you can make $10 million in a day. I remember the first day I made $10,000. October the 5th, 1974. I remember the first day I made $100,000. 1976. I remember the first day I made $1 million. That's to me. Okay? I remember the first day I made $10 million. And I remember, like, when I took a shit this morning and brushed my teeth, the day I made 100 million pounds in one day, me. Without question, your goals are too low. And they're too low, why? Mommy and daddy, who probably had no goals. My parents only had one goal in life: to keep me alive until I reached the age of reason. That's it. There wasn't any. Because I was they used to call it problem child back in those days. But I was a terror, to say the least. There was a slide of a big pile of crap 5 or 6 slides ago, and most of what you've learned to date about creating generational wealth, being an entrepreneur, starting a business is crap. I heard somebody say earlier about a business plan. Business plans are passé, they're not needed. I'll explain to you later why they're not needed. Because a business plan is just a wild ass guess. I've never seen, in 50 years of doing this, a business plan fail on paper. I'm going to say that, these are Navy guys, so I'm going to say it again. I've never seen a business plan fail on paper. Why? Because you put the most optimistic shit in there, right? So who's going to believe a business plan? Only morons. That's why they're not needed. If you started a business, the first 50,000 pounds, euros, or dollars in your business was geometric growth. Quantum leap. The next 50 or $100,000 or pounds or euros was geometric growth. Then what happened? You started playing not to lose instead of playing to win. You sat on your assets like a mother hen and were afraid that you're going to lose the money that you made. Anybody that's gone from 0 to 100,000, 0 to 10,000 has created geometric growth. Some of you sorry cunts in this room have, which is hard to believe. Goes to show any person can do it. Even brain dead retards like you. The first dollar that you make, euro, pound, is geometric growth, you retards. Then why didn't you continue? I know fear works, and I'm a proponent of it. And anybody who thinks any different is crazy. Bullish. I don't know what the right terminology. Fear still works. Just in athletics today. University of Central Florida, who won one of the national championships in football last year. The fear of not making the team, they use to recruit, because they're one of the 2 national champions. And the other, whoever the other one was, the fear of getting cut from the team. In athletics, the fear of not making the Olympic team. The fear of not getting good enough grades to get into Harvard or wherever the
you want to go to school. But they couch it differently now. They don't call it fear. They call it motivation, but motivation through fear works. Most of you have lived your lives and your parents' lives giving tacit approval. Tacit approval is the reason why you're here today. And the people that are on YouTube are poor on YouTube. But tacit approval is this. This guy tells me something, and I know it's horse, and I just sit and listen. And then I walk away, right? Or, God forbid, and I hear his bullshit, and I happen to nod my head. Okay. Now he goes to this other muttonhead over here, and he says, Dan's on board. Not because I said I was on board, or by accident I nodded my head up and down, because I didn't say I wasn't on board. In his mind, I've given him tacit approval. You've lived your whole lives. For those of you that work in big organizations, you listen to your boss, you know he's full of shit, but you just sit there and listen. Now, I got in trouble. I used to say, you're full of shit. That's bullshit. All my life. And I told you, Dr. Shirley Teeter said, the only thing that's changed with Danny Pena is that his accomplishments have caught up with his big mouth. The thing that always amuses me is that the current day movies and stuff, at the end of the movie, normally the people reconcile. That's not my experience. The higher performer, the higher the performance person, the less probability that they're going to reconcile with anybody. Why? Because they don't need anybody. And almost all the big hitters I know, and President Trump is a primary example of this, a preeminent example. Saying sorry is a weakness. Apologizing is a weakness. Saying you were wrong was a weakness. What do I say? I may be wrong, but I'm never in doubt. Every I know. Which flies in the face of all the bullshit now. President Trump doubles down, triples down. I don't know if you can quadruple down, but, and that's my experience with those guys and the few really high-powered women that I've known. So again, it flies in the face of virtually everything you've been taught. Most of the people managing money, wealth today have never seen a bad market. They went around in '87. I have. But all the guys that have are dead, got dementia, are not interested anymore. There are going to be more opportunities when everything falls to shit. But it takes balls. I mean, you got to step in, and you may have to put your whole net worth on the line. And then because you stop playing to win and you start playing not to lose. I've been there.